Hi, welcome back to Malone Hatley's podcast. I now pronounce you divorced. Today, we are joined by a panel of our litigation attorneys as we are coming out of the holidays. And so we have with us Lauren Adkins from our Tampa office. We have Lelan Kirk from our Fort Worth office, and we have Valerie Fisher from our San Antonio office. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. So as we get out of the holidays, we're kind of trying to figure out what's next. How did I survive this? Is it time for me to move forward and either file for a divorce, file for a separation, or what do I do? And so I feel like from when I was really litigating a lot at this time of the year, post holidays, there's just a surge in potential consultations and filings and things like that. So I'll start with you, Lauren. What have you seen post holidays as far as any type of divorce or separation filings?
I think what we notice the most is that people try to hold on the best they can through any conflict they have during the holidays. Usually picks up right before Thanksgiving. They want to do the best they can for their families and their kids. Any small issues that they may have, they put on hold and they build a little more through Thanksgiving. And then the Christmas rush picks up and they feel those issues build a little bit more. But it's obviously not the time during Christmas to separate or talk about divorce or what might happen with their relationship after the holidays. So they put it on hold a little longer as they're decorating the Christmas tree with the kids and put those things on hold to make it through the holiday. And then, they have the 3-week break after Christmas with the kids and it's not the time then either. And then it's New Year's and then there it is. So you're into the next year and here we are 2026 and it's finally time to take a breath and look at what you want to do with your life after that holiday time has passed. And the reason for the whole surge after the holidays is what do I want best for me in this new year? What's going to work best for me moving forward? I grit my teeth. I made it through the holidays. I did what I could for my kids and my family. I sat through the uncomfortable family dinner at Christmas and Thanksgiving, and I just can't do it anymore. So it's time to get my finances in order and look at what's best for the kids moving forward and make that big step forward in the new year and figure out what's best for everyone moving on. I think that's what everyone sees in a new year.
Yeah, and for our other guests on the panel, is there an advantage to waiting during this post holiday time, or what would you suggest?
Yeah, so I mean, I think about it from two angles. From a divorce perspective, when especially with children, everything Lauren said is exactly right, and it does kind of make sense, especially financially, because you're buying gifts and traveling, and seeing other family members and all of those things. And then normally people have established a pattern when they have children about where they go for which holiday, whether it's their in-laws or their family's homes, and so having that same routine for the children is huge. But I do also believe that, like, with another thing that we see is with parents, with the standard possession schedule in Texas as an example, when we're exchanging children, we oftentimes see a lot of conflict there over the holidays, but parties tend to work it out however they're going to work it out. And then post divorce, it's like, hey, I don't want to go through that again. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to be late to see my kids or have to go wherever I had to go to get my kids when I was supposed to get them at 6 on whatever day. So I think there's a whole other level of people doing that. And then also, finally, um, I think a lot of people try to establish, when they're unhappy in their relationships, like almost like a New Year's resolution, like, hey, 2026, I'm gonna finally move on with my life. And so then once the new season starts, like Lauren was saying, and the holiday seasons are over, then it becomes just like when people hit the gym, it becomes a push to, hey, let's get this person out of my life. So yeah, that's what I got.
What about when we're going through the holidays and for whatever reason you're not allowed to see your child or your children because the other parent either forgot or didn't want you to see them, and so now we're post holiday and you missed the holiday. What do you do? Do you have to wait till the next holiday, or is there maybe a particular remedy that's available?
Dan, if I can comment on that, I was I was going to say there might be an emotionally charged reason why after the holidays people might be looking to get into court right away. I mean, the other party can be the Grinch that stole Christmas that year because they misinterpreted the order or surprised. You thought you were getting them at 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve, but actually it's the 28th of December, something like that. And it may very well be that you had a misunderstanding. Your lawyer is not answering the phone on Christmas Day, understandably. And so it just creates a lot of emotions and negativity. And almost, seeking retribution for you ruined Christmas this year. So that can be something that we see a lot of. Also, to your question a moment ago about is there an advantage to heading into litigation, whether it be launching your divorce or modifying or seeking additional orders temporarily after the holidays? It can be an advantage if you're the party knowing that you're heading into court after the holidays versus being the party who just overextended themselves, because that's what happens sometimes in Christmas. And now you have to pay a $5,000 plus retainer to an attorney, and you might find yourself compromising or at the very least being very financially uncomfortable with heading right into court after the holidays. Whereas if you knew this was coming, you would have planned for that. So strategy wise, it could be an advantage. And what can you do, to the question you just asked, if you do miss holiday time? In Texas, at least, we are able to go seek makeup time. It would require what we call seeking additional temporary orders or modifying the existing temporary orders, or even doing an enforcement action if the other party just flat out violated the current order where you were supposed to have X amount of time in the holidays and denied you for maybe nefarious reasons or their own lack of understanding. You can go into the court and get that time made up.
Mhm.
And to expand on what Valerie was saying, from an immediacy perspective, depending on what your order says, we could also apply for and file a writ of habeas corpus, which is bring me the body. So if the other parent is unlawfully withholding, we could file something within some immediacy to say, hey, we were supposed to have, the day 2 days before Christmas, hey, we were supposed to have the child at this time. You haven't delivered them. Bring the child to court. The police will go get the child, and then we can get our visitation. So that's another option, also depending on the immediacy.
With all the surges, is there a time that we'd have to wait to get into court as we hear in the news and just read different articles that there is this surge after the holidays? Is it worth filing it and getting these remedies that y'all have been talking about, or do we just wait until next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always worth it to file. I mean, it really just depends on how bad you want whatever you're supposed to get, I guess, right? I mean, if you really want to see your children for Christmas and you're supposed to have them for Christmas, like we were talking about with the writ of habeas corpus, that's an immediate need. So you're not going to have to miss it this year and say, oh, I'll try to get it back next year, which is, sometimes that is better financially, considering your finances. But yeah, I don't think it's always better to wait, but
And sometimes we have clients who, like I was saying, the emotional aspect might come into play a lot here, where they really want the message delivered that we're not going to stand for this, or we weren't okay with it, or, you ruin the holidays for even the kids or what have you. And the message is far stronger if we head in on December 27th than if we wait for January 27th, right? Some people are insistent, and I understand why, that we go in and immediately get some court intervention.
One of the things I tell people in Florida, it's similar to Texas in that we can seek the relief before or after, but we start talking in September about planning for the holidays, because you're not walking
Mhm.
into a court in Florida and asking for an emergency motion to see your children if you miss out on Thanksgiving. And it's no disrespect to any family, but it's not an emergency to the court because you didn't see your children. It would be an emergency to me if I didn't see my children, but it's not an emergency to the judge. And that's something that's very hard for clients to hear, but that's exactly what I will tell them. And we have a few clients right now with pending temporary orders and stipulations of temporary parenting plans just to get through the holidays. I said, just get something in writing to get you to, the end of the holidays. And those got them through those dates, because they said, why do we need this if we have mediation in February? Because I promise you think Thanksgiving is worked out, you think Christmas is worked out, wait until the eve of before that holiday when it's not worked out. And you're trying to call us and we're not responsive at that point for whatever reason, and the courts aren't open and we can't get you any relief. So we start planning back in September for these things. And it really carries through on all the holidays every year to make sure you're planning ahead, and you can still seek the relief as you come up on the holidays, but it's much better to plan ahead and try to get a stipulation for a temporary time sharing plan. Like I said, even if it's just to get you through 2 holidays, because the courts aren't going to see time sharing as an emergency, and at least in Florida.
I
Mhm.
I totally agree with you, Lauren, on that. And the result is, if we don't handle this earlier, and our client is now, saying, oh, well, suddenly we realize that the strategy we had or the plan we've been doing for the last 5 years while we've been separated isn't going to work this year. And we tell them exactly what you said, that courts are not going to see that as an emergency. We could handle it, for next year, or put it in an order for next year. And then sometimes we may find clients saying, well, I didn't mention, but Uncle so and so has some, drug abuse issues, or there's unsecured weapons in his parents' home that they're going to. And I'm very concerned. And can we get an emergency protective order? And it starts snowballing. And now everyone's Christmas is ruined, right? So,
Right.
Leland, you brought up an interesting point, and I know you referenced, the new year is kind of the new you going to the gym, but we always hear towards the end of the year, either pre-holidays or definitely post-holidays, time to review your will, your trust, try to make changes or create one if you don't have one. Is this, the post-holidays a good time to review parenting plans and things like that to determine, do I need a modification? If so, how do I go about doing that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we do consults all year round, so all you have to do is reach out to us, and we can do that for sure. But yeah, I think that going into the new year is a great time to relook at what just happened, and at least talk to an attorney to compare what the standard possession schedule is. Also in a lot of states, Texas specifically, we get new legislation in September. Not every September, but periodically we'll get some new legislation that might apply. And so it's also a really great time after the holidays to come in and say, okay, now I've got essentially a year until my next holiday season. What kind of changes were made? Has there been a change to the standard possession schedule? Do I now get more time? How likely is it that I can modify that? Or if we're going through a divorce, have the child support laws changed? What are they? Those kinds of things, so that we can kind of get ahead of whatever might be happening, so that we can make sure it's the best time to file.
One of the unique things we have with this panel is we have not only different states, but different jurisdictions. How hard is it for each of your jurisdictions when a client comes in post-holiday and says, you know what, this schedule just didn't work for me. I did not like it. Can I change it? Is that without consent? Is that something that's possible, or does there have to be a certain threshold that has to be met?
In Florida, I would say whenever we're doing an initial final judgment in a divorce, I say make sure you get what you want now. Make sure you like it, what you have. Make sure you're at least satisfied with it, because it's not as simple as coming back later and saying, you know what, I don't like Fridays. I prefer Saturdays, or this day didn't work for me. Let's just do this. In Florida, the standard is a substantial and material change of circumstances in order to be able to change a final judgment later. And that would require a supplemental petition for modification. So to answer your question, to come back with a parenting plan in January and say, this Christmas plan didn't really work, the question is going to be, well, what's changed since you instituted this plan? Well, we just couldn't meet at the right time, or the gas station location wasn't great for me, and these sort of factors didn't work. That's probably not going to be enough. The courts are going to look for a substantial material change in circumstance from the entry of their final judgment for why you're asking to change it now. And courts don't like to change their orders. You went through the process of a divorce. Judges, quite frankly, most of them don't like to sit in trials. You enter an order, they sign an order, they sign a final judgment, and you're finished with their courtroom. And you come back later asking to change, and they're saying to you, well, you signed a mediation agreement, or you came to trial and this was my order. What was wrong with it the first time? You have to prove to them with a pretty high burden why they should change what they did the first time. So parties need to understand that. And so that's coming with the initial divorce. We always tell people, make sure that whatever you're putting down there is good enough for both of you. And that also goes towards the detail we put in plans. A lot of people will come to us and say, you know what, we get along fine. We're not going to be married anymore, but for time sharing, we're okay with the kids. Let's just we don't have to set times. We're good with, I'll drop them off Friday. I'll pick them up Sunday. No, you won't. You better put in an exact time there. And if you don't ever look at that parenting plan, there's no parenting plan police that's going to come and check on you. That's what we'll tell people. You can put it in a drawer and never look at it till they're 18. But if you have it, it's a safeguard for both of you to know that you can fall back on it. Mm-hmm. And that helps them through to the supplemental petition phase too, if they need it. Because we'll have people come and say, thank God we had the specifics we had to carry us through to this point. Because if you leave it too general, that's going to end up messing you up later on when you need that change.
No. Yeah, I was going to say that the standard in Texas is the same, material and substantial change in circumstances. So that's interesting. And everything Lauren said is right. I just was thinking about one more aspect in Texas. It's a little more specific, would be a modification of child support. So in Texas, the law actually says that if your child support would increase or decrease by 20% or $100 per month, then that is considered a material and substantial change in circumstances. So what's interesting about that is that a lot of people receive bonuses and things like that over the holidays. So sometimes early new year, depending on where they were at, can be a disadvantage. Another thing that we notice when we're calculating child support that can be advantageous or disadvantageous, but definitely something to look into, is you have a complete year-to-date salary, right? So now we have the clearest picture we could possibly have at the end of the year of what your income was the last year, right? Calendar year, and then changes in jobs and those sorts of things. So depending on how you're anticipating your next year to go, it could be a great time to file for a modification, or it could be a terrible time because you get a really good snapshot and you can say, hey, let's take a couple more months and see how business is this year, before we go jump in and give you the highest child support amount because you made the most money you've ever made in your life, with a modification. So that's another aspect of new year that can be come into play.
Yeah, I want to thank all of you for your time. It's definitely worth revisiting and reviewing your decree, reviewing your parenting plan, just to see what's working, what's not working, and talk to us. Give us an opportunity to review it with you to let you know, does it rise to that level, or does something happen during the holidays that we need to change? Or to Leland's point, is there a financial change that's happened now that we know what that calendar year is? Was there a bonus that was paid out that would rise to a level, potentially modifying some support aspect? So Lauren, Leland, and Valerie, thank you so much for your time. For those who are listening, please continue to like and subscribe. We do appreciate these 5-star reviews that come through. And if you have any questions, reach out to us at Malone Hatley. We're more than happy to review your decree to see, is there something that can be changed? And if so, what does that process look like? Thank you.